Good evening, everybody. So, this is a project made by Ashima Garg and Mrityunjay Mehta. The aim of the project is to predict stroke using different machine learning approaches. In this, we have compared different techniques to find out the maximum accuracy. For the introduction, what exactly stroke is? So, stroke is basically a medical emergency and it occurs when the blood flow on a part of a brain is interrupted or reduced, because of which the stroke occurs. And according to World Health Organization, it is the second leading cause of death. Also, now, what are the risk factors that are involved in the stroke? And these are the exact risk factors we have also used in our features. So, one of the risk factor is age. So basically, people above age of 55 are more prone to strokes. Another examples of risk factors are hypertension, smoking, diabetes, obesity. For just giving an example of obesity, if a person has a BMI, body mass index, of more than 30, then he is more prone to uh, those strokes. So basically, where did we get the motivation to do this one? As it is known that in the developing countries, just like India, there's a lot of more people who are prone to strokes as compared to the people who live in developed countries. And hence, because of which the cost really increases. But if we being able to predict the possibility of a stroke is highly desirable for clinicals because of that. This allow clinicals to set reasonable goals with patients and relatives and to reach shared before care decisions for recovery or rehabilitation. So this was the major motivation because of which we felt of doing this project. Now coming on the topic of what all the techniques that we were used. So Python is basically the code language in which we did all the code while we were doing this project. The second is skitlearn. So skitlearn is basically the package of Python that we used for logistic regression, one of the techniques we used. Pandas is basically for used for navigating the data set in the CSV file that we will be showing you quite shortly. Matplotlib was basically used for graph plotting. Jupyter Notebook was used to write the code. The code was basically written there. Logistic regression is one of the technique we used. K-means is another technique. One-hot encoding we'll be explaining to you shortly. So these were majorly the techniques that we used. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this was majorly the methodology or the ultimate what all we have done. So initially, we first did the exploratory data analysis and cleaning. Then we use logistic regression as one technique, K-means as another technique to predict the accuracy of the model. Then we also use confusion matrix in both of them individually to predict the accuracy. And the fourth one is collection, representation, and basically proper documentation of it. So the first, starting with the cleaning. So the data set we actually acquired from Kaggle was it had a lot of redundant values. For example, in the column of BMI, we observed a lot of values that were mentioned were zero. So they were not uh, useful for predicting strokes. So we removed those specific values. The second, for example, was a unique ID. So every patient was given a unique ID. And as we know, that will not help us in predicting the stroke. So we removed that column. So like that way, we cleaned the whole data set of ours. Next is exploratory data analysis, which Mrityunjay will be explaining.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Mrityunjay Mehta. Ma'am, like Ashima said, before we cleaned the BMI values, the BMI values which were not available, we filled it with zero and then removed it. After that, what we did is that we did the exploratory data analysis of the resulting data, in which what we did is that like it is a basic method to for discovering patterns among the data, to spot anomalies, to test hypotheses, to check assumptions. In the starting, we get the assumption that we were given the assumption that people aged 55 and above are very prone to strokes. So in exploratory data analysis, we will check this assumption. We will discover patterns regarding this, and it is generally a good practice to understand your data first, and gain as many insights from the data before doing any machine learning prediction or applying any algorithm on the data. So in exploratory data analysis, we find some observations. We draw the graph using the matplotlib library of Python, and we draw some graphs, and based on the gender we find out that those the people who had stroke 1, the more men were prone to strokes than women. Now, it is 4.52 percentage. In the data, we can see that the female figure is more than the male, but the percentage, if we count, then 4.52% out of 3.97. So, it clearly shows that men are more prone to strokes than women. So that was the first observation based on gender that we found out. In case of hypertension, we find out that in case of stroke one, that is the people who had stroke, the people who had hypertension is equals to 1. The people who had hypertension is significantly higher than people who didn't have hypertension. That's why people having hypertension are more prone to strokes. Similarly, in case of heart disease, there is a very huge gap between the people who had heart diseases and didn't had heart diseases. Um, Falling prone to stroke. So people having heart disease are much likely to develop stroke attacks, as we can see, 3.64% and to 28.57%. Similarly, in ever married, we check the status of the people who were ever married in the past or in the present, and we checked out that 9.56% people were married and had stroke, and 0.82% people weren't married and didn't had stroke. So we can safely assume that married people are more prone to stroke, have stroke attacks, right? And the next resilience cycle, Ashima will explain you. Yeah, Ashima.
Yeah. So basically, another example was if you can see here, the basically one means the person had stroke and zero means the person did not have stroke. So when we can see from urban, so more than 100 people in urban had stroke and around the similar figure, rural people also had stroke. And if we take out in terms of percentages, so basically, 4.07 people who belonged in rural spaces had stroke, and 4.38 people who belonged in urban had stroke. So it is not a very much huge difference. So we can conclude from that that residence type doesn't show much variation in stroke attacks. Stroke attacks are slightly more in the urban areas than rural areas, but that won't much have a difference when we were predicting. Another one is job type. So job type, there were like majorly three types of job types: private, self-employed, and government jobs. So when we saw from this the graph and finally converted into percentages, we could see that the people in the private sector are more prone to strokes. So that's what we concluded, and the least were the self-employed one. People having private jobs are more prone to having stroke attacks, followed by the people having government jobs. People who are self-employed are least prone to have the stroke attacks. Mrityunjay?
Yeah. Ma'am, regarding the age, we find out the observation that we visualize the age, that visualizing effect of age at stroke is equals to 1, that the people who had stroke 1, what were their ages? We plot the frequency and versus age graph. And those people who didn't had stroke, we also plotted it. And as we can see the stroke 1 from the stroke 1 graph, that the people who had stroke, the people below the age of 25 are least prone to stroke. As we can see, like below the age of 25, there is hardly any evidence that people having strokes. But after 75, there is a huge surge in the amount of strokes. So we can safely assume that people above the age of 75 are more prone to stroke. And it also sits back with a hypothesis that in the starting we took the hypothesis that people aged 55 and above are more prone to stroke, and we can also verify this hypothesis using this graph that people having age above 55 are more prone to stroke comparatively to below 55. And observations based on glucose levels. Similarly, we can see that people having glucose level around 100, or we can say that the lower level of glucose levels are more prone to strokes than people having higher level of glucose level. That is, we can see from the stroke is equals to 1 graph. Between the frequency and glucose level graph, we can see that the people having around 100 or below than 100 glucose levels are more prone to strokes compared to the other percentage other people, right? Similarly, observation based on BMI, we can assume that people between 20 to 40 are having maximum number of strokes. Around 30, we have the maximum frequency of strokes, around 27 around. So we can say that the people having 27 to 30 around can have a huge surge in the amount of strokes. Now, one hot encoding, Ashima will explain.
Yeah. So basically, after having done this, the next step after doing the complete exploratory analysis and understanding the weightage given to each feature, the next step which we did was So first, the something was the all the features that we use, the BMI and everything. So they are the categorical data. So we converted the data that were categorical into numerical data and the features into some dummy features. So ultimately, what happened was, can you show? Yeah, or one hand, or, yeah. So for example, there was one feature we used was gender. Now gender is either a female, a male, or other, but it is not in a numeric form. So what we did, we created dummy features for that. So we created out of one feature, gender, three dummy features. One can be female, another is gender female, another is gender male, and another is gender other. So for example, here, as you can see, in the gender females, if a person is a male, then one would be marked against male and female and other will get zero. Accordingly, then all the people were categorized in terms of gender into these three dummy features. Similarly, when it comes to job types, as you can see, one of the is here and other one is after the scroll. So ultimately, if the person who was in a working job, it was private job or this much, so that was also divided. So all the features were ultimately converted into numeric data. So we had around 5,000 rows, and all of them, and we then the columns increased to 22 because we increased the dummy features. So this is basically one hot encoding that we converted the categorical data, everything into numeric data, and this is we did because it made the data more efficient and it helped us in getting better results. So as it is written here, it is most widespread approach and it works very well unless categorical data is on a large number. So that was not the case and it worked really well in our case. The next thing we did was the now after the data has been it converted into dummy features. The next thing we did was, since all the features have weight, so basically what we did was we applied a logistic regression model to it. Before that, we balanced the data. So basically what happens is when we saw the data, they were around, like for example, there were a lot of values which said that the stroke did not happen, a very few values which said that stroke did happen. So ultimately, if we just did not put any machine learning algorithm or directly put as an answer no, the accuracy would have as it is come a lot higher. The inefficiency wouldn't have been that great. So thus to make the model really efficient, we balanced the data. And by balancing the data, what we did was by balancing the data, what we did basically we observed that we have approximately 211 values where we predicted the stroke as yes, and other all were the ones we predicted the stroke as no. So we took the counter to 211 and the values of stroke when the stroke did not happen till 211 index, we kept it, and more than that we stored in another value 2. Afterwards, we discarded all the values that had 2. So ultimately what came down to was that we had 421 rows which had exactly same number of people who had stroke and same number of people who did not have stroke. So from 5,000 we reduced it to 421 to make it a more efficient way. Now logistic regression, as we all know, is a supervised machine learning algorithm, and that because we already provide them the test results and it is simple to implement, it is effective and all of these features, and it worked really well in our case. So what we did was we trained our data. We had the features are given weight and these weight determine, so exactly the equation that came out was y we gave the variable y we gave to the stroke prediction, and x1 and x2 were other features. So the equation approximately came in the way of y equals to c1 x1 plus c2 x2 and so on, where c1 and c2 were weights and the x1 and x2 were features when the data was trained. So ultimately here, as you can see here, from the sklearn library, उसके अंदर से we took the linear module, and from that we imported the logistic regression function, and this function we stored in an object logreg. This object we stored in logreg, and ultimately we had few, and then we had the data x and y. So basically we had some data that we trained and some that we were testing. So we put all the data that we trained into logreg, and then we did the logistic regression and calculated the values, and then whatever the values we got of x test, we put it into y predict. So afterwards we compared them and we saw if the y predicted value and the value that actually existed are same, then we increase the counter to 1, and hence after increasing the total counter, we calculated the final accuracy and we got an accuracy of 94.6% in logistic regression. the next thing to just to take out accuracy once again in a better manner, we use confusion matrix. So how is confusion matrix used? It's an n by n matrix, and in our case they were like 2 by 2 matrix because there were four cases that were possible: true positive, true negative, false positive, and false negative. So for example, if the model that we trained predicted that the stroke will happen and in actual it also happened, then that will be a true positive. If we predicted the stroke will not happen and the stroke did not happen, then it's a true negative. If we predicted that the stroke will happen and but in actuality that did not happen, that would have been a case of true negative. And then if we thought that the stroke will happen and the stroke did, sorry, that will be a case of false negative. And if we predicted the stroke will not happen and the stroke actually happened, that actually will be false negative. So these are the four categories that we divided it into, and these were the values that we received. So 153 cases were the cases of true negative, 163 were true 153 were true positive, 163 were true negative, 59 were false positive, and 46 were false negative. On the basis of that, what we calculated was from these values, we calculated the sensitivity, specificity, precision, recall, and F1. And after putting all these formulas, we finally calculated the accuracy, which came out to be again 94%. So basically, before actually while we were doing this, initially we got the percent only of accuracy of 73%. We cleaned the data more and we worked more on it and ultimately got a accuracy I has as high as 94%. To just to compare it with different learning models, we did another technique which Mrityunjay will be explaining it to you.
Okay, so ma'am, we were targeting one supervised machine learning algorithm and one unsupervised machine learning algorithm. The second one which we targeted was k-means clustering, which is a very popular machine learning algorithm. In k-means, what we do is that we segregate the unlabeled data into various groups called clusters based on having similar features or common patterns, right? So what we did is that similarly, if we define a cluster like a cluster refers to a collection of data points aggregated together because of certain similarities. So in our case, we can assume that there are two clusters: one the people who are having stroke, and one the people who are not having stroke. But like we can in like each record is a point in the graph. We can say that in the plot of k-means, we can say that each record is a data point in the graph, and we choose a randomly the amount of k we set. We choose the amount of centroid points and we plot them, and based on the centroid points, we estimate the clusters, and we estimate the amount of clusters. We draw clusters around them, and like the process of learning data k-mean algorithm in which it's randomly select centroids, that is the amount of k, and after that it performs iterative repetitive calculations to optimize the positions of centroids and uh, create better and better clusters. The centroid gets optimized, stabilized, and after some repetitions, if their value is not changing, then these are the most optimized and stabilized clusters, and then we take those amount of clusters, and um, it that's how the k-mean algorithm clustering works. So the pros and cons, if we talk about the pros and cons of the k-means, it is relatively simple to implement because the code hardly takes any time to implement. It is just the concept behind it, right? And it can scale to large data sets because clustering can be done on very large amount of data. So it is a very independent in this sort of problems. It guarantees conversions, obviously. It is self-explanatory, and it can warm start the positions of centroids. So like I said, the centroids in the beginning are very randomly chosen. So the amount of the k value is randomly chosen. So like the start is very warm, it is very random, and after that it adapts to new examples and everything. Like the centroid get optimized and optimized, and in the final the clusters are made, right? And similarly, generalized to clusters of different shape sizes, such as elliptical clusters, because it generalizes to every shape. The clusters get optimized, and the cluster gets better and better, right? The cons of the k-means clustering are the in the starting, like I said, the k is to be chosen manually. So the first k is chosen one, then two, then three. You can choose the amount of k, and the centroid get optimized in the method afterwards. So the biggest con is that it takes that amount of time because the k is chosen manually first, and It depends on the initial values. Like if k is chosen, what we have chosen the k, it depends how faster and how better it will perform. Like clustering data of various size and density, like some clusters are big, small, so it can happen. So this is one of the problem. Also, clustering outliers, we can say that the outliers, there are some outliers, like some data point, some record or some data point is very, very outside the cluster. So it can form its own cluster sometimes, or it can affect the for centroid position to be varied or changed, and then it will affect in a less optimized cluster. So it can happen. Like outliers create some problems in the k-means clustering algorithm. Also, there are number of dimensions. Like if we like from one hot encoding, we can say that from one hot encoding, like when we did one hot encoding, initially the data was very less, had around 12 columns, because we took 12 attributes, and after one hot encoding it was reduced to 22 columns. We dropped the stroke column, so after that it was 21 columns. So 21D graph had to be made. And so like I said, the scaling with number of dimensions, like dimensions are increased a lot, and after dimensions are increased, the graph plotting becomes more and more difficult. So these are the cons of k-means clustering algorithm, right? Now, as I said in the starting, we find the k, that is the amount of centroids to be plotted. So for finding k, first I imported the sklearn library. From sklearn library, sklearn.cluster module, I imported the k-means function or method, right? And after importing the k-means method, I put the k-means method into km object, and I have fit the model with dfinal columns and ytrain. Columns is what I sort of after dummy encoding, I we sorted the columns. Uh, After one second, give me one second. After encoding, we selected some columns, and we did logistic regression on top of it. So column basically defines these columns after dropping the stroke. So these are the exactly columns, and we from a data frame we took those columns and we fit the model on that. So df final columns, and we gave the ytrain value also, and we fit the model. So and we also took a sum of square error, empty matrix, empty array, and we after we took the range of k from 1 to 10, and after that, after model fitting, we appended the km inertia. Inertia is the it basically defines the amount of distance from of each data point from centroid in the graph. So we can say that the inertia value, the inertia value of whole km, we it defines the sum of squared error. It gives the intuition about the sum of squared error. So we can say that we append the km inertia in this empty matrix, so that sum of squared error has some value at the end. And for each k in the range of 1 to 10, we plot a graph regarding that. From k and sum of squared error, we plot a graph. And from this graph, we can use the method of finding the elbow. Like the elbow of the graph is saying that k is equals to 2. So we can, it is a generalized practice that we can take the k value from the elbow point. So we can see that the elbow is indicating to k is equals to 2. And from our hypothesis, also from our basic observation, we can also say that k should be 2, because one is people having strokes and one is people having not strokes. So we found the amount of clusters to be 2 and the amount of centroids to be 2. After that, what we did is that we again load the k-means function, giving the cluster size 2, and we load it in the object called k-means clustering, and we fit the model, giving the x-train value that we did during the test train split, right? So we gave the x-train value. It is around 80% of the total input data set. So we gave it, and the model is now trained. And after that, we check the k-means clustering cluster centers. So we get a 21D, 21 dimension center of 21 dimensions we got of point 1 of centroid 1 and centroid 2. So it is a very huge amount of dimensions to scale with, right? After that, we printed the classification report to get the accuracy and all the other things, and we also printed the confusion matrix. In a classification report, what we did is that what I did is that I predicted using the x test value, and I put it in the k prediction, k predicted variable, k prediction variable, and I printed the classification report using the sklearn.matrix classification report function, right, from the sklearn matrix module. So these are the classification report, and accuracy came out to be 84% around. Also, we can say that similar result we can assume we can get from the confusion matrix. Like from the confusion matrix, we get true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative, as Ashima explained, and we calculated the value of sensitivity, specificity, precision, recall, and accuracy, and also F1 value, because these metrics are used to determine how efficient the model is. So we plotted and we calculated and we printed the value, and we got the accuracy of 83.70% using the k-means method, right? And in the end, this is the timeline that we thought about. Like we took the task on research about the product, then task 2 exploratory data analysis and cleaning, task 3 using various methods to accurately predict stroke occurrence using data set. We did that, and we collected and represented the data, and we produced the Gantt chart, and we are according to the timeline. And we also have some future tasks to improve the accuracy of the k-means method. Like in the starting, like Ashima explained, that what Ashima did is that Ashima uh, there was a BMI values that there was not available in the original dataset. So it was filled with zero and they were removed. So what we will in the future we will do is that we will use another algorithms, logistic regression or something like that, or SMART analysis or something like that algorithm, and we can predict those unknown values to us, and then we can use the whole dataset. So that also we can do, and we can also do some. We can also use some other algorithms also. Like here we use one supervised and one unsupervised, like the basic starting algorithm that we use. Logistic regression. After that, we use the k-means algorithm. So we can also use a random forest method, or we can also use various other algorithms, XGBoost and other. And we will try to predict the better and better, and we will compare them in between that, which is the best algorithm in this case. In our case, we get the logistic regression to be the best. So that's from my side. Yeah, sure.
Yes, I guess that's it. That's all is our future goal to increase the accuracy of k-means if possible, and to use different new machine learning algorithms if we can, and probably increase the accuracy to maybe 95 or 96% to as much high as we can in the future. Thank you so much. And this is our project, stroke prediction using different machine learning approaches by Ashima Garg and Mrityunjay Mehta. Thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am. Thank you so much.